Welcome back to the channel. Take a deep breath and expel that hell you're in, because today we are jumping into sobriety and how boring it is, or isn't. Now, for a modicum of context, I've been a recovered alcoholic for about 9 years now. April 1st will make it 9. And in that time, I've competed in powerlifting meets where I've won one. I became a published model. I became a carpenter. And I was in a Men's Health article. There's just a bunch of things that I've done. But the most important thing that I've done is I've acquired these ring wraith gauntlets. But as much as I love them, I'm going to take them off for the video because they are clinking. It's a little bit of ring wraith ASMR for you. Go to sleep. Stop drinking. Okay, let's take these off. So if you're new to the channel and you have no idea who I am, here is a super quick crash course in who I am and how I got to where I am. I am originally from Los Angeles, and I've moved 26 times in my life, but I ended up back in Los Angeles, somewhat emancipated from my actual family because I wanted to have my 4 years of high school. And in that time, and after I graduated high school, I fell into the punk rock scene, and I had a bunch of experiences, one of which was winning Wipeout and winning $51,000, and that catapulted me into doing bad things. And one of those bad things was falling into alcoholism. I bit my tongue. Falling into alcoholism. Now, when you're really young, I think it's really easy to just party. And as I got older, I didn't let go of that. It only got worse. Cut to me being 25 years old, hating myself and hating my life and wanting it to end and coming very close to making that happen. But thankfully, that didn't happen. And instead, I chose to put the bottle down and start living the rest of my life. And I started making YouTube videos that are still on here if you go back far enough. And I started talking about my thoughts and feelings on sobriety and alcohol and other things in life in general. And my methodology was not through 12-step or AA because as an atheist, the whole structure of AA just didn't really mesh with me. And I'm not casting shade on AA or 12-step. If it works for you, I'm happy for you. And I want you to get to where you're going, whatever means you choose to use. But for me, it didn't feel right? And I didn't have fun while I was there. It was always like a drudge, a chore for me to do that. And one man's treasure is another man's not treasure. That's not right. All I'm saying is that there are different strokes for different folks, and what might work for one person isn't going to necessarily work for another person. So I found a way that worked for me, and I figured there's got to be other people like me out there that could benefit from at least hearing my thoughts and opinions on this. And if I help just one person, then it was worth it. And if you're the one person I'm helping, then hello, thank you for giving this meaning. Since getting sober, I have not fallen off the wagon once, I haven't taken a sip of alcohol, and I haven't had cravings. And this is not a brag, but this is more of a proof of concept for me personally that the way that in which I got sober works and potentially could work for other people. Now, if you were or are an alcoholic like I was, the majority of the time in your day is going to be spent getting alcohol, trying to get the money for alcohol, being drunk, trying to hide it from people, including going into work while drunk, driving when you're drunk from A to B, because if you're drunk all the time and you got to get places, you're going to be driving. And all of this consumed the majority of my mental space. Whether I wanted it to or not, it became a responsibility to myself. Now, when you remove that, right, you have all this time, this unaccounted for time, and you're like, what do I do with this? And over the years, I've had people reach out and say things like, hey, I've been sober 3 months now, and I'm bored out of my mind. I'm bored out of my skull. This is just not fun. This is like exhaustingly dull. And I understand where these people are coming from, but I think that they are misguided. And I'm here to try to light the path. Now, what are we really saying when we're saying sobriety is boring? Because sobriety is just the lack of a substance, the removal of a single substance. So you're just back at life, right? To say that sobriety is boring is to say that my life is boring. And if it's your life, you're the only one that can tell yourself and figure out what it is that would be fun and meaningful and fulfilling to you. So I can't really tell you what that's going to be, but I can give you a couple places to start that at least might help you get going. Basically, we've removed a lot of the action that you've had in your life, going from A to B and trying to acquire alcohol and manipulate the world around you. And so now you're left with this vacancy. And that's why I say the very first place that you should start is by moving your body. Movement is action. And if you haven't been active, and chances are you haven't been super physically active, if you have been beholden to the alcohol for this long, then you want to start moving your body around. And this is multi-pronged. First and foremost is that moving your body feels good for your body and it helps your mind. The mind and the body cannot exist without the other one. So by moving your body, whether that's hiking, working out, dancing, whatever it is that you want to do, or even if you don't know you want to do it and you're just trying things, moving your body releases endorphins and it feels good for you. Even if in the moment it feels like hell and you don't want to do it, I promise you, you will feel better afterwards. The second prong is that we are setting up small, tangible, very attainable goals. I'm going to walk around the block today. I am going to drive to the gym and get on the treadmill for 20 minutes at any setting. And I'm going to work out something else for 20 minutes. You can set the bar as low as you want it. You just need a bar there. And by consistently accomplishing even these tiny goals, it helps get your mind into a state of momentum. And that is something that we need if we are at a place of stagnancy. So by moving forward, by accomplishing these little goals, you start feeling better about yourself because you can only feel good when you are actually accomplishing the things you're saying that you're going to do. Especially with alcoholism, a lot of that is justification for your bad actions and lying to yourself and allowing yourself to believe these lies. But deep down, you know that they're lies, and you know that you are constantly going back on your word or you're lying, knowing that you have no intention of carrying through with these things. And that has a weight on yourself, on your mental health and how you feel about yourself. You know you are constantly letting yourself down. You are failing your friends and your family, and it hurts. You don't want to look at yourself and think, I'm the bad one here. I'm failing. I hate myself. These things suck and we don't want to feel them. And that's why making these tiny little attainable goals is starting to help shape a new path forward of how we look at ourselves and how we treat other things that come up in our lives. Because if you can accomplish your simple physical goals, when you get used to that, you can start applying those to things that are outside of physical achievements. I want to get the dishes done today. I'm going to make my bed. I'm going to vacuum. I'm going to file my taxes. Maybe that one's a little spookier. But the point remains is that it's building momentum. And you are building little points for yourself of feeling like, I actually can do this. Maybe I can change who I am. Because you absolutely can. All we are our actions. We are what we do. It's easy to say that we're something, and talk is cheap. All these sayings, all these phrases, these cliches, they come about for a reason, and it gets to the point that they become a platitude, something that is said so often that it kind of loses its weight, its meaning, right? But they're still true nonetheless. Then one of the more obvious benefits from moving your body around is that you're starting to get into shape, and there is no person alive that doesn't feel better as they get into better shape. Our bodies just feel better and work better when they're in shape. And if you were anything like me, you were normally passing out from the alcohol at night rather than looking at the clock and saying, time for me to start winding down and getting into bed. I didn't even know what that was. I just would, at some point in the night, the lights would go dark and I'd wake up and be like, what happened? That was every single night for me for years and years and years. And when I got sober, I kind of had to relearn things. I felt like Neo in the Matrix, going like, what's happening? Why do my eyes hurt? You have never used them. It sounds crazy, but that's really what it is. You have to relearn the most simple things. Going to sleep, making sure you're drinking enough water, like all of my dietary needs back when I was drinking always seemed like emergencies because I would wake up and I would drink and I would drink and I would drink until my blood sugar plummeted and my body was saying, "Hey, you're really shaky right now because you haven't given me anything to eat except for beer, and now you're about to pass out because you haven't had any food in your body." And so then you're driving around getting fast food or something, going to a gas station eating candy bars because you need to put something in the tank, right? So you have to relearn these normal daily routines. And it's nothing to shake a stick at. Like these are real problems that you have to figure out in your sober life. And the last thing I'm going to say about the physical aspect of this is that these goals can be ratcheted up, right? If you're just walking around the block and you get that down pat, right? Like now you're like, oh, that's super easy. Expand your walk. Maybe incorporate a hill. If you're working out in the gym, obviously there's this thing called progressive overload. As you get stronger, as your body is able to move that weight easier, because you're breaking down the muscles and your body is saying, okay, I guess we need to be stronger if we're going to continue to do this thing and we're eating enough protein, then your muscles get bigger. And if they get bigger, they get stronger. So you need to move the more weight to get the results. You get diminishing returns on the same amount of weight. And so we incrementally add more. We withstand more resistance. And that builds us into a stronger individual, both physically and mentally, because physical exercise is just as mental as the physical part. But anyway, physical part, over. Okay, so now you've been moving your body, but you're still like, now what? Like, what do I just work out all the time? I just walk around the block forever? No, you have to figure out what it is that you like to do. You have to pick up a hobby or find some kind of passion. And I'm not saying that you have to become an artist and like pour your whole life into something, but that wouldn't be a bad option either. But the idea that you stop drinking and you start getting into shape and then you go home and you're just like, well, time for bed. If that's how you're approaching sobriety, then you're approaching it in a very disingenuous way, that no one is saying that you should just stop drinking and then all of life's problems evaporate and everything is perfect. No. Getting sober eliminates all the problems that alcohol brings with it and your bad decision making when you're using it. But it doesn't fulfill your life with the things that life requires to be fulfilling. That's on you. You have to figure that out for yourself. And if you have no idea where to start, this is my advice. Think back to the last happy memory you had when you were young, doing whatever it is that you loved doing. It could be, I used to love art class, or I used to be really into sports, or I loved writing or reading. Any one of these things that you used to love doing when you were younger, before you were subjected to the party lifestyle, to drinking or drugs or any of that stuff, that's where I would start, because that is the genuine you. That is who you were before alcohol, before all of the stress and the piling on of all the chaos and sticky garbage that adult life can be. And if you don't have any of these memories, you have absolutely no frame of reference, anywhere to start, then the world is your oyster. Then you can sit and say, what would I like to do? What would make me happy in this moment? And if your mind just goes back to drinking, then what that's telling me is that you ultimately are afraid. And I don't mean to sound like the preacher in Donnie Darko. It's just fear and love. I know it is not as simple, and I'm not trying to be reductive. But what I do mean is that, what does alcohol represent? It represents the familiar. It represents the numbing and the dulling of the scariness that life can be and the uncertainty. Because with alcohol, we know the outcome. And sometimes we end up choosing alcohol even though it's a bad outcome, because we crave resolution. We want an answer. And at least with that bad answer, we still got our answer. The oldest and most strongest emotion mankind has is fear. And the oldest and strongest fear mankind has is the fear of the unknown. H.P. Lovecraft. And that could not ring more true today, because anything that we don't know how it's going to turn out is scary. because it is a mystery. We don't know if we're going to fail or we're going to suck at it or there's going to be bad outcomes. And so what do? We retreat into the comforting darkness of familiarity, even if that familiarity is bad for us. Now, I've said that this is something that you have to figure out for yourself, but I will still offer you a couple places that you could be starting. One, journaling. And you might roll your eyes and think that I don't have the patience or the time to journal. But if you have the time for social media, then you have the time to sit for 10, 20, a half hour and write out your thoughts. The importance of journaling is this. You might think that you know yourself extremely well, right? Because you're in your head. You have all your own thoughts, but you would be shocked at what you end up writing down. As this mind to muscle to pen to paper connection starts to blossom, your hand just kind of starts going away. And as you start looking at these things coming out of you, it may shock you, and it allows you to delve deeper into who it is that you are and what it is that you want out of life or the person that you want to be. And this is invaluable. Like you cannot stress, like I cannot stress enough just how important it is to figure out exactly who you are, because if so much of your identity was wrapped up around alcohol, around being someone who drank, being a barfly, being the guy that could hold a lot of liquor, and you remove all of that, what's left? You're going to have friendships completely fizzle out because that was the only thing bonding you together. And that can be a scary thing for people. That's one of the things that allows people to slip backwards, is that they're like, well, I'm losing friends. You are not losing friends. You are losing people that like to drink around you. And it's as simple as that. If it was a friend, if it is someone that they love and care about you, then they'd be happy that you're doing this and not feel crestfallen that you're leaving the ranks of the damned. So number one, I cannot stress enough how important it is to write and journal and figure out who it is that you are. Trust me, bro. I know this, okay? It is known. Number two, and this kind of, you're going to be like, oh my God, but reading. And hear me out before you scroll away. Hear me out. And you might even be saying that, oh my God, now not only am I writing, I'm reading, this feels like a class. If you want to improve your life, if you want to be a better person, and you want to get to the point where you don't suffer from cravings from alcohol anymore, and you don't hate yourself, then at the very least, I'm telling you how I did this for myself. Reading is so beneficial. Not only does it expand your vocabulary, not only does it expand the concepts in which you are familiar with and open doors that you didn't even think were there because you just didn't know about those things. It is actually creating new synapses in your mind, and alcohol breaks these down and reading builds them back up. And so you want to sharpen your mind because the blade of your brain, of your mind, has been dulled by the acidic nature of alcohol. And what we are trying to do is grind down that rust and bring out that sheen, that shine, that honing in of that razor's edge that is your mind. And we do that with reading. Now you might say, what am I reading, Kyle? What am I reading, Mr. Jumper of the Celts? Well, I'll tell you. You're going to read all of the Harry Potter and the Game of Thrones. I'm kidding. You can read whatever it is that you want, right? But a place that I started was reading books about people that did get sober, and I'll give you a couple of recommendations. Now, normally I would have these books on hand, but as it turns out, I've actually loaned them out to someone so they can read them. But these are my three. Number one, Drinking a Love Story by Carolyn Knapp. Now, one little excerpt from this book literally punched right through my brain and the illusions of how unique and messed up that I thought I was. I'd never heard someone speak so plainly about the things that I also think about, like how my pathological brain worked around alcohol. And this is all paraphrasing, but basically, a group of people are out to eat at a dinner in a restaurant, and a bottle of wine arrives, and everyone is poured a glass, and the waiter leaves. And a normal person might notice that the wine is being poured, and they're like, oh, nice. Taste the wine, smell the wine, enjoy it, and go right back to the conversation. But Carolyn had said, not only was I conscious now that the alcohol is here and we are allowed to drink, but what I'm thinking in my mind is, how fast can I drink this glass of wine before I can grab another one and I don't raise any suspicion? Are we ordering another bottle of wine? Is there a bar in this restaurant or this hotel? How close is the nearest liquor store? What are we doing tomorrow, and how much alcohol can I bring? This is how my mind worked. There was never any point that I ever wanted to not be within arm's reach of alcohol and not be inebriated. And I just never heard someone talk quite like this. And she, I believe, was a journalist, but phenomenal book. And reading about other people's struggles through sobriety is just massively beneficial, as is watching their YouTube content. Another one is A Life Unwasted, My Lush Sobriety. And I think I'm getting that right. If not, I'll put it right here or something, or maybe I'll put the graphic here. Editor. I don't have an editor. But this one was a little bit more lighthearted. Another female writer. The author is here, because I can't remember. I don't have the books on top of my head. But this one was, it still was talking about the seriousness and the things that she went through, and how alcohol is so normalized, and it's super easy to kind of slip into this and thinking that I'm just being a wine mom. This is kind of quirky, funny. And next thing you know, you wake up and you're like, I hate my life and everything about myself. And it was just, it was a fun read where Drinking a Love Story was more like darkly poetic. This one was kind of like, hey, it's kind of crazy, right? That alcoholism is just so popular and we don't really talk about it that much, you know? And it was a really good read. And the last one is Blackout, Remembering the Things I Drank to Forget. This one was a lot darker. And I really, like, I've always kind of been drawn to the dark and the Halloween, the mysterious, the horror that is the Lovecraftian, as just the color of my soul. You know, that is what resonates with me and is what gives me happiness. And I feel like I connected with this book. I don't want to give too much away, and I don't know what I can say on this video, but those are the three that I would start with. But if you don't feel like reading about drinking or alcoholism and all that stuff, you definitely don't have to. You can read anything you want, just something that starts exercising your brain as you are exercising your body. And once again, finishing a book feels really good. It feels amazing. And if you want to, start small. Start with a 100-page book, just a little goofy book that you've wanted to read, that you've pushed off. Especially if you read before you go to bed at night, it helps you fall asleep, you know, and we need to learn how to fall asleep again. So ultimately, sobriety is not boring. Life can be boring. And it can be boring because you are not tilling the soil and planting the seeds and watching the plants that you want to grow. That's up to you, and no one else can implant that for you. That is something that you have to figure out, and hopefully I've given you a couple places to start from, because this is a very subjective journey. These are things that no one really can do the work for you, and that might not be what you want to hear, but them's is the truths. And it can be as simple as a perspective shift to be able to understand this. Imagine someone came up to you and said, what is going to give my life meaning, purpose, fulfillment? For me, specifically, you would be like, I don't know. I don't know you. How am I supposed to know what is going to make you happy, what you want to do with your life, what your goals are? I don't know who you are. That's exactly what it is. And so you got to figure it out for yourself. But you start with putting down the thing that is making that impossible, and that is the booze. And secondly, you just move your body around, start activating your mind, and as things start improving, doors start opening up, possibilities start opening up around you. You start building trust again with the people that remain in your life because they care about you, and they don't care that you drink or don't drink. In fact, they're happy that you stop drinking. And once you start building this life that you actually are proud of, that makes you happy, that you have challenges and goals that you're able to accomplish, and you're proud of these things, the next thing you know, you're like, wow, I am not drawn to destroy this. I'm not drawn to tank this because I like my life now. And so a lot of those urges to self-medicate start fading away in the background. And that is how I started building the foundation for a life completely void of drinking urges and temptations, and how the allure of the bottle simply vanished. And I no longer was looking at a bottle full of happiness and emotions and things that it would make me feel, but simply a bottle of liquid sitting on the counter that I no longer wanted to drink. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you made it all the way to the end, please like, share, subscribe, all of the nauseating YouTuber things that we have to say. And a big shout out to my sponsor today. I don't have a sponsor either, but we'll be there. We'll be there one day. I hope. I promise. I hope. I promise that I hope. Anyway, all right. Love y'all so much. Bye-bye.